Hi, my name is LeahZaki, student number N8299781, presenting for EDB005, my QCT Professional Standards for Teachers poster. So, in this presentation, I will be discussing my understanding of the QCT Professional Standards for Queensland teachers and the way that I've demonstrated them using a couple of examples. So the first example will be creating authentic assessment for assessment-capable learners. So this was actually a set of guidelines that I developed for myself following taking a cross-institutional study program looking at writing assessment and doing reporting. And I was really inspired after attending a professional development session at Russell Island where we talked about creating assessment for assessment-capable learners. So I wrote this document for myself as a set of guidelines, including examples of rubrics and a couple of different multi-literacies approach to learning sequence and that sort of thing. So I discussed at the professional development session my understanding of writing rubrics with a couple of my colleagues, and a lot of them told me and addressed the issue that they weren't actually that experienced in writing rubrics for young children, and that they'd usually just use the C2C and tried to adapt those, and that they'd found that even they sometimes weren't 100% sure what the C2C rubrics were trying to ask of these kids. Much to my honour and surprise, I was asked by the principal to come in and do this professional development session with the staff. At that professional development session, I went through my guidelines for writing assessment, and I just quickly went through the three areas that I focused on, which were appropriateness, quality, and clarity. Under clarity, we've got the actual writing of the task sheet and the rubric. I've provided an example here of the EDX3270 science unit, just an extract of one of the rubrics that I wrote, and I've adapted this for a couple of different assessments, obviously depending on what that unit was. So again, much to my surprise and honour, I had a few teachers asking me if they could have copies of this one as an exemplar, just for the writing, in a way that kids could understand and that could actually bridge that gap and provide the more authentic assessment experience for both teacher and student. So the QCT professional standards that I've covered, I've actually copied in on the PowerPoint, so you can have a look at those when you go through and read it, but I've focused here on relationships, so I'll just quickly go into that. For Standard 6, we have supporting personal development and participation in society. So here, inviting students to embrace their real-world experiences and understanding as skill sets to support their learning in diverse subject areas. So rather than disregarding what students already know, we're embracing that knowledge, and we're trying to bridge the gap between, the classroom and outside of the classroom. Standard 7, create and maintain safe and supportive learning environments. So creating environments where children feel safe to take risks, creative risks. That's been the basis of writing all of the assessment that I've written, and, that hasn't been very much, but it's something that I've developed using these guidelines, and I've found that no matter what it is, whether it's, just a quick formative thing that you're thinking about and taking notes, creating that safe environment is the best opportunity for a child to be able to take those creative risks and have some, success. So then we lead on to contribute effectively to professional teams. I feel that I contributed directly to professional teams by creating and sharing these guidelines and my rubrics with teams at both Russell Island and Macleay Island during field experience, and I've received extremely valuable feedback for my work. So I've continued to develop that and taken the positives with the negatives, of course, and I'm, really appreciative of any feedback that I can receive for this from you too. So I've also demonstrated Professional Standard 10, committing to reflective practice and ongoing professional renewal. Again, these guidelines are an example of my ongoing commitment to professional development and renewal of my skills and understanding. My next example is the development of a reading comprehension program using readtheory.org, which I came across while wanting to assist my mentor teacher back at Russell Island when she was looking for ways to improve reading comprehension with her class. So I've gone into a little bit of description here of how that website works. So it invites students to read a passage of text. Basically, they're logging in to an online classroom, reading a passage of text at a certain reading level. It assesses what reading level they're at fairly quickly, and then it presents them with questions in a multiple choice format similar to what they'd expect from NAPLAN or exams that they'll have in the future, for example, what we have at university. They're also possibly most importantly, able to access their own progress through visually engaging graphical progression charts, so they can see their own progress at an ongoing level. As you can see here, when I implemented the reading comprehension program, students very quickly started to find that they really could see where they did well and where they struggled, and for a lot of these students who were getting distracted, it was quite evident to them, especially as they were able to see what time they received a certain mark or, did a certain passage, that they were, all very distracted at that time and therefore unable to perform as well as they had maybe half an hour earlier when the room was quiet. So very quickly the students were logging in and accessing their own progress because they were really curious about that and quite fascinated by what we were casually referring to at the end by exponential improvement. A lot of the parents were really excited by that as well, and of course the parents are able to log in with the password that the teacher and I provide, and other teachers are able to access it as well. Excitingly, I was able to export this data, so we used that in our PLT, Professional Learning Team meeting, and my teacher was really excited to be able to present such a modern and visually appealing representation of the reading comprehension levels and skill sets of our class to the PLT. We were actually asked, because of that meeting, to present this to the rest of the staff, and the principal said that we needed to have an agreement to implement a new program into the school, and they actually did agree to that at the staff meeting. So the rest of the school are setting that up as well. So here's just a snapshot of my own classes' reading progression. As you can see, the yellow is where they started off, then we have the orange at their peak, and the red is the average for each student, and then there's their reading level. Quite a few of them are doing really well, and those kids who are really high up on the blue there, you can't see that I'm pointing my finger, really shocked my teacher, and a couple of the other teachers said when we logged in later that they were actually logging in at home to get further ahead and get those high points. So going into the professional standards, again, I'm focusing on the relationships. So standard 6, supporting personal development and participation in society. So not every student was able to focus at all times, as I said. Some of them tried to skip ahead a little bit, but they found that they really had to actually read the text and answer the questions accurately to be able to move ahead. So that quickly kind of crushed any thoughts of cheating, and everybody was really genuine in their attempts at, doing it from then on. Standard 7, so creating and maintaining a safe and supportive learning environment. So though a handful of students felt the need to try to cheat their way to a higher level, there was no context for ridicule or failure or negative bragging, as each student worked toward their own reading goal and they'd set for themselves, and numerical results were kept between the teacher and the individual, so other students could see what their reading goal was if they wanted to publish that. Otherwise they could just see how close they were getting to that reading goal, and that was something to be proud of. So for standard 8, fostering positive and productive relationships with families and the community. Again, parents were able to log in and share that gratification with their children and see how successful they were being, and potentially, when they were going down, and they could, see a little bit of an insight into their own child's behavior. So standard 9, contributing effectively to professional teams. This was something that I shared with the whole school, starting with my mentor teacher, the PLT, then the head of curriculum, and finally the principal and the rest of the staff. And I didn't put myself out there. They found out about it and were really excited, so I was happy to help. And finally, Standard 10, my ongoing development can be credited to the opportunities I've had to contribute to professional teams, and I intend to continue to learn in this way. Finally, just a little quick thing, we did a happy NAPLAN day from Miss Zaki and Miss Burnett, but you can read about that on the page. Thank you so much for your time.